those without having to kick out all of our wonderful visitors. So we want to be able to hear all the rest of our agenda today. And so we're going to reorder briefly so that we are going to move next to the portion of the agenda where Director Farmer is going to brief us on previous iterations. And then after that, we will just go through the rest of the agenda as it is presented here, and then move into closed session for the two presentations, and then come back out of closed sessions to take our photo. So please don't jet out of here, task force members. We got to take our photo after that closed session. So that is what we will do. Director Farmer.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the perfect. I'll stand here. So 2012 is really the big task force iteration that we were focused on. And Michelle, I know you've spoken about the work done. And I think those of us who are involved in the work groups have seen a lot of the similar recommendations and topics bubbling up. So if you see here, this is just some information. It was established like this one. It's given a 2-year executive order to address comprehensive statewide gang reduction plan. Similar to us, the work group's prevention intervention, but they have a prevention and reentry as a separate work group. So those were the 4 work groups under the 2012. There were some general recommendations, and then there were work group recommendations. General recommendations with county planning, county level gang reduction plans, using the OJJDP model, creating a portal of resources, and evaluating and expanding the North Carolina Street Gang Suppression Act. The prevention and intervention work groups, these were the recommendations, training for people who work with youth, community, identified gaps in youth programming, develop programs that were holistic for at-risk individuals and family, cultural training, implement cultural sensitivity training for service providers, alternatives to education and vocational pathways. Suppression and reentry work groups, their recommendations were add a special U.S. attorney prosecutor field liaison program to expand that, to train communities on the High Point model, strengthen programs like Street Safe, raise the age, threat management, expanding security threat management unit and community threat group programs, and then coordination, emphasize coordinated data-driven approach to reduce gang activity. So that's the quick version of what was provided. And I think most of you have that information. I did want to let you know that I did talk to the leaders, other than Michelle, from the 2012, about what happened? Like, why are we here again? And, we've heard from Michelle, but I wanted to make sure we had some consensus as to what they were. And so just a couple of things that I want to make sure you had in your brain as we're moving forward, especially towards identifying and making recommendations. There was no designated person or entity responsible for each of the tasks. So they were recommendations, but they were not assigned or charged to somebody. There were no benchmarks or milestones, a timeline, something definitive, like in the first presentation, she mentioned, let's try 5 counties first. And, for the first this time frame, and then move on to a statewide implementation, whatever it is. None of that. There was no evaluation of the programs and things recommended. So making sure that they recommended a 3rd year. I'm not sure we have that kind of ability, but making sure that there was a systematic approach for evaluation and tweaking, making sure there was a long-term plan, not just, handing a plan. These are the recommendations. Funding dried up right after the task force ended, which caused a lot of the programs and ideas to And funding does ebb and flow, so that is a factor we'll have to address. Regional communication stopped, so there was the liaison program, and I think that dried up as well. The best practice sharing stopped. And so making sure that we have a consistent, people are coming out with great programs, great productive ideas, and making sure we have a systematic way of getting that information out there so that we are always looking and addressing the new things. Along those lines, having a systematic way to address statutes, because they were saying we did raise the age, but then there were some things that that got missed once the raise the age happened, such as addressing how juveniles with gangs and how we're having that looked at every so often in a systematic way. Reviewing types of crimes being committed, because over the last 20 years, the types of crimes have changed greatly. And so making sure that we are focused in that regard. They didn't predict anything about the witness intimidation. That piece of it was never discussed. It wasn't touched, the retaliation piece. And so making sure that we have a way to address that, but also whatever the new things are that are going to happen, they're going to happen. And so making sure in our plan we think about those things and what direction, addressing what direction things might go in, and not gathering data. So, the data hasn't changed. We haven't been able to really pinpoint hard numbers on some of these things because the data hasn't been there. So I talked to 4 different leaders from past